So Jay-Z switched up his name again, and his PR team is pushing this idea that it's all about celebrating 30 years of reasonable doubt. But people are not buying that story at all, and Mase definitely isn't either. To him, this isn't some harmless tribute. It's something way deeper. Everything's starting to fall apart around Jay-Z right now. That's straight up validation for Mase. This is everything Mase has been talking about for 2 decades, and now it's finally unfolding right in front of everyone. Jay-Z has been catching serious heat lately. Epstein files getting brought up, links to Harvey Weinstein, plus that GQ interview that came off so out of touch it even had fans side-eyeing him. And now, right in the middle of all that pressure, he suddenly needs a new name? That timing feels real suspicious. People are starting to connect the dots, and Mase is basically saying, "I told you so." He's been warning Jay for years that this moment was coming, and now it looks like things are catching up fast. So the big question is, why does all of this hit so personal for Mase? It actually comes down to something pretty simple. Mase was actually one of the first in hip-hop to call Jay-Z out for who he really thought he was, and now everything Jay-Z is dealing with today, Mase was calling it out nearly 20 years ago. This didn't just pop up out of nowhere. This goes way back. Take it all the way to 1997. Mase was on top of the game, no debate. Harlem World went 4 times platinum, he had hit after hit, and the bad boy machine was pushing him everywhere. Meanwhile, Jay-Z was still trying to find his lane. Reasonable Doubt hadn't blown up yet and was struggling to even go gold at the time. That's when Mase fired his first shot on Love Me Remix. He came in bold, basically saying, "All we hear is platinum this, platinum that. Nobody really got a platinum hit." That line was a direct jab at Jay, calling him out for talking big without the numbers to prove it. It was subtle, but people who knew exactly who he was aiming at. But it didn't stop at music. That's where things got personal real quick. There was a deeper reason behind the tension, and her name was Arian.
Someone asked me to be on something. Pretty much every song that I'm on, I'm asked to be on. I don't ask people.
How many no's?
Oh no, there's a lot, way more no's than yes. But I typically try to be straight up with people. I don't like to drag and like waste people's time or hold them. If it's something like I'm not in space right now to create, or if I don't like the song, it's just not for.
She showed up in a Harlem World skit where Mase jokes about mixing up his girlfriend's names, but off the record, Arian was connected to Jay-Z's circle. She was the mother of one of his friend's kids. And when Jay saw that, he didn't take it lightly at all. To him, that crossed a line, and suddenly this wasn't just rap competition anymore. It was personal. So after Mase checked Jay on that track with 112, Jay came right back with a response on Ride or Die. And he didn't hold back either. He threw in that line, "Check your own videos, you'll always be number 2. And that was a clear shot at Mase. Everybody knew he was talking about that Can't Nobody Hold Me Down video where Mase is standing behind Diddy wearing that number 2 jersey while Puff rocks number 1. What Jay was really saying, Mase would always play second to somebody else, always in the background instead of leading. That line hit, and people caught it instantly. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. According to Dipset's 40 Cal, this wasn't just music back and forth. He claimed Jay didn't stop at diss tracks. He actually pulled up on Mase in Harlem, trying to press the issue and show who had the upper hand. That took things to a whole different level. Then fast forward to 1999, right when Mase was at his peak, running the charts and dominating the scene, he suddenly stepped away from everything. Reports at the time claimed Diddy tried to involve him in a situation that made him uncomfortable. And that moment played a role in Mase deciding to walk away from the industry completely.
So he's like, "We got $1 million." He's like, "Well, I don't know, because young boy NBA called me up. He got $2 million." We like, "All right, cool. Like, we just wanted to get you out the news for looking bad." So I guess the young boy NBA thing fell out. So Mase called back the next day. "Yo, see what he want to do." He like, "Yo, just wait on it. I might got another deal." So Mase like, "Yo, bro, he said, you got $1 million today in your account today. Hold on,
Mase was so shaken by what he saw and the names tied to it that he completely stepped away from that world. He turned to faith, became a pastor, and cut himself off from the whole industry machine. That was a huge shift, especially at a time when he was on top. Meanwhile, Jay-Z stayed close to Diddy for years, building that connection while everything else played out in the background. Now jump ahead to 2026 and look at how things are lining up. Diddy is sitting in prison and Jay-Z's name is being mentioned in those same conversations. On top of that, he's suddenly changing how his name appears and people are starting to question the timing hard. Just last week, fans noticed something strange. If you search Jay on Apple Music, Tidal, or YouTube, the name didn't look the same anymore. The Y now has 2 dots over it. and his team is calling it a creative tribute to Reasonable Doubt turning 30. But a lot of people aren't convinced by that explanation at all, because when you really look at it, this feels familiar. People are comparing it to the same pattern they saw before, name changes happening during moments of heavy attention. Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy Brother Love. Every shift came during a new chapter surrounded by controversy. And now, people online are calling it out instantly. One fan even said, "Bro's trying to make himself harder to Google." That comment spread fast because it tapped into what a lot of people are already thinking. At the end of the day, you can switch up the name, tweak the branding, and try to redirect the spotlight. But history doesn't just disappear. And right now, that history is coming back into focus in a big way for Jay-Z. Jay-Z's name showed up in those files not just once, but twice. And that's what really got people paying attention. The first mention came from an FBI intake report, where a woman claimed she woke up in a room with both Harvey Weinstein and Jay-Z. That alone was enough to spark serious conversation. But then there's another layer to this that a lot of mainstream outlets barely touched. Another document in those same files included an email from former Barclays CEO Jess Staley to Epstein. And this part right here raised even more eyebrows.
Yeah, he never rapped before. I came to Puff with those songs. They never give me credit for that. All my awards went to Puff. I wrote all those songs.
So now you got all kind of CEOs rapping, and now you have, I'm a CEO rapping.
The email, dated February 3rd, 2014, had Staley talking about anti-corruption protests happening in Brazil. He was basically saying something like that could never happen in the United States, and then he brought Jay-Z into it. According to the message, Staley claimed that black protesters in the US had been influenced by Jay-Z. The email said, "You want to know why we are not Sao Paulo? Watch the TV ads on the Super Bowl. It's all about hip blacks and hip cars with white women. The group that should be in the streets has been bought off by Jay-Z." That line alone had people stunned. So what's being implied here? The idea that big, flashy ads, celebrity influence, and curated images are being used to shape perception and keep people comfortable with the system. That's a heavy claim. And now that it's out there, people are looking at everything a little differently. And according to that message, the person being used to sell that image was Jay-Z. It paints him as a gatekeeper, the one keeping people distracted, making sure the crowd that might speak out stays at home watching commercials instead. That's a serious claim, and it's exactly why people started connecting it to moments from the past. Because some people still point back to what happened with Colin Kaepernick. That email was from 2014, and then just 2 years later, Kaepernick takes a knee, and suddenly, he's pushed out of the NFL. Then, not long after that, Jay-Z steps in and partners with the league. He becomes the face of their "We Hear You Now" campaign, and the first thing he says hits people the wrong way.
It was hard, really hard. I was like heartbroken. I haven't been that angry in a long time. Uncontrollable anger. Like, you don't put that on someone. Like, that's the thing that you better be super sure. It was like a testament, because people know me. Like, I know who you are, and that's impossible.
He says, "We're past kneeling, let's move on." And that line had people shocked because to many, it sounded like shutting down the very protest that got everyone's attention in the first place. Then fast forward to September 2025, and another moment gets people talking. Jay-Z and Beyoncé are seen sitting at the same table as Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner at a Reform Alliance event. And here's what stands out. Reform Alliance is Jay-Z's own organization, so seating wasn't random at all. That detail made people question the choice even more. Out of all the options, that's who he ends up sitting with. For a lot of observers, it just reinforced the idea that when you reach a certain level, connections and power circles start to overlap in ways people don't expect. The argument being made here is that for people at that level, it's less about race and more about class. The idea is that Jay-Z has more in common with figures like Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner than with the average person watching this. That's a bold claim, but it's exactly why people are questioning where he really stands. Jay-Z often presents himself as the bridge between the streets and the corporate world, but now people are asking a tougher question. Who is actually benefiting from that position? Because from this perspective, it looks like he's aligned with interests that prefer things to stay calm instead of disruptive. When major moments happen, whether it's protests, public movements, or calls for accountability, critics say he tends to push for working within the system. He encourages voting, patience, and trusting the process. And for some, that comes off like redirecting energy instead of amplifying it. That's why reactions to his recent GQ interview were so strong. People expected tough questions, especially with everything being talked about right now. But instead, the interview felt soft to many viewers. The interviewer, a younger fan of Jay-Z, asked broad and easy questions and never brought up Diddy or the documents people are discussing. And that's what really stood out. At a time when people wanted direct answers, the conversation stayed surface level, and that only added more fuel to the debate. Jay-Z did briefly bring up that lawsuit that got dismissed, talking about how hard it was for him. But what stood out to a lot of people was what he didn't say. There were no words of sympathy directed toward any alleged victims connected to Diddy, and nothing at all about his long-known relationship with Diddy either. That silence caught attention fast. And then another detail came up that raised even more eyebrows. The lawyer who handled that case for Jay-Z, Alex Spiro, was also mentioned in those same files. That connection had people looking even closer at the situation. When the interviewer asked about criticism toward billionaires, Jay-Z brushed it off, saying, "It's a cop-out to demonize rich people." He even went further, claiming that despite his billionaire status, he's never taken advantage of anyone. That statement alone had people debating hard online. And as if that wasn't enough, he also weighed in on the Kendrick versus Drake situation, saying the beef went too far. That comment surprised some fans, especially considering everything else being said around him at the moment. But wait a second. This is where people really started calling things out. Didn't Jay-Z choose Kendrick to headline the Super Bowl, where he performed a track throwing heavy shots at Drake? And now suddenly he's saying there's too much negativity? That switch-up didn't sit right with a lot of people. But what really made people uncomfortable in that interview was something else entirely. Jay started talking about being untouchable, tying it back to his Hav nickname, which comes from Jehovah, a name associated with God in the Bible. That moment had people reacting fast because it came off way too bold and over the top. A lot of viewers walked away wondering who even approved that interview in the first place, because instead of helping his image, it seemed to make things worse. The tone didn't land well, and people online were quick to say it felt arrogant, disconnected, and even hypocritical. Social media lit up right after. More and more people started questioning the image Jay-Z has built over the years. One user on X summed it up perfectly, saying, "Jay-Z 100% tried to sell Black capitalism and his own personal wealth accumulation as some sort of collective good for Black America." And now everything is circling back to Mase, because this is the moment he's been pointing to for years. While everyone else was celebrating Jay-Z's rise, Mase was stepping away and warning that something about that world didn't sit right with him. Back then, people brushed him off like he was just talking crazy or bitter. But now, with all these headlines, old clips, and resurfaced stories, some are starting to look at those warnings differently. It's like pieces of a puzzle people ignored before are suddenly getting a second look. Mase has even spoken in interviews over the years, hinting that the industry isn't what it looks like on the surface. He suggested there are deeper layers, power plays, and decisions being made behind closed doors that the public never sees. And now with everything happening around Jay-Z, critics are asking a big question. Was Mase seeing something early that others missed, or is this all just being reinterpreted with hindsight? Either way, the conversation is getting louder, and people are paying closer attention than ever before. And here's where things get even more intense, because now people are starting to revisit everything Jay-Z has done over the years with a completely different lens. Moves that once looked strategic and genius are now being questioned in a whole new way. Business deals, partnerships, public statements, nothing is off limits anymore. People are digging through old interviews, old lyrics, even old appearances, trying to figure out if there were signs hiding in plain sight the whole time. And once that kind of scrutiny starts, it doesn't slow down. What's really driving this shift is the timing of everything happening at once. The name change, the resurfaced of that, the GQ interview, and those past connections, all hitting at the same time, has people raising eyebrows. Some are saying this is just how fame works, where every move gets overanalyzed. But others are convinced there's more beneath the surface, and they're not letting it go easily. One thing is clear though, Jay-Z isn't just being talked about right now. He's being watched closely. And every move from here on out is going to be under a microscope. And now the pressure is really starting to build because people aren't just watching anymore, they're expecting answers. The conversation has moved past quiet speculation, and it's turning into loud public demand for clarity. Fans, critics, and even casual observers are all asking the same thing. What's actually going on behind the scenes, and why does everything feel so carefully managed right now? That question keeps coming up again and again. At the same time, every move Jay-Z makes is being picked apart instantly. Whether it's a public appearance, a statement, or even silence. That silence gets analyzed just as much as anything he says. And in moments like this, saying nothing can sometimes speak the loudest. What makes this even more intense is how fast information spreads today. One clip, one quote, one screenshot can take over the conversation in minutes. And once it's out there, there's no pulling it back. So now all eyes are locked in, waiting to see what happens next. Because whatever comes next is going to shape how this entire situation is remembered. Now here's where the criticism gets even sharper. Some people are saying Jay-Z's whole brand message doesn't match what he claims to stand against. They argue it lines up more with that pull yourself up by your bootstraps mindset, pushing the idea that anyone can make it while ignoring the bigger systemic issues that still exist. From that point of view, his version of winning the game was never just about success. It was about playing by the same rules as the people already in power. And for critics, that raises a bigger conversation about what success is really being modeled here. That's why some say you can't separate the admiration of Jay-Z and Beyoncé from the admiration of wealth and status itself. To them, that image has always been part of the brand. It just feels more obvious now than ever. And in 2026, that recent GQ interview hit differently for a lot of viewers. Instead of feeling connected, some walked away thinking it sounded like a cultural icon who's gotten a little out of touch with the everyday reality people are living. But what do you think about all this? After watching that GQ interview and seeing the name change, do you think it's all just timing or something more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can join the conversation.